You probably have at least one habit that other people think is a little strange. Maybe you talk to yourself when you're alone. Maybe you lose interest when conversations become repetitive. Or maybe your brain refuses to stop thinking about problems everyone else forgot 5 minutes ago. Usually, we treat these things like flaws. But some strange habits can appear alongside traits connected with deeper thinking, curiosity, creativity, and cognitive flexibility. That doesn't mean doing one weird thing makes you a genius. Intelligence is far more complicated than that. But certain behaviors can reveal something interesting about how a person's mind processes the world. And number seven may look like the least intelligent habit of all. Imagine you're alone in your room. You lose your keys, and suddenly you hear yourself saying, "Okay, where did I put them?" Then you start answering your own question. To someone watching, this might look ridiculous, but talking to yourself can serve a useful cognitive purpose. When thoughts stay inside your head, several ideas can compete for attention at once. Putting a thought into words forces your brain to organize it. The problem becomes more concrete. The next step becomes clearer. It's almost like turning a messy internal conversation into instructions you can actually follow. This is why people sometimes speak aloud while solving difficult problems. They are not necessarily talking because they need company. They may be using language as a thinking tool. And highly analytical people often spend a lot of time interacting with their own thoughts. But there is another strange habit that happens when those thoughts become more interesting than the conversation around them. Someone asks, "How was your weekend?" You answer. Then comes the weather, then traffic, then another conversation about something neither person actually cares about. And your brain quietly leaves the room. This doesn't automatically mean you're antisocial. Some people simply need more mental stimulation from conversation. They want to know why someone believes something, what changed their mind, what they're afraid of, what they're building, what they think will happen next. Surface level conversation gives the brain very little to explore. Deeper conversation creates connections, patterns, questions, and uncertainty that is much more stimulating for a curious mind. The danger is that intelligent people can sometimes mistake boredom for superiority. Not enjoying small talk doesn't mean everyone else is shallow. Small talk actually serves an important social purpose. It helps people build comfort before going deeper. But if your brain constantly tries to move conversations from "what happened" to "why did it happen," that may reveal a strong preference for complexity. And that same preference can make the next habit exhausting. You need to buy a chair. Most people see a chair they like and buy it. You somehow end up comparing 17 chairs. Price, comfort, material, durability, delivery, whether you'll still like it in 3 years. Then you find yourself reading a discussion from 2019 written by someone who apparently has extremely strong opinions about chairs. This can look like indecisiveness, and sometimes it is. But another process may also be happening. A mind that easily sees multiple possibilities also sees multiple ways something could go wrong. Instead of seeing one decision, it sees a decision tree. If I choose this, then this might happen. But if that happens, then maybe this other option would have been better. This ability to simulate different outcomes can be useful. It's part of planning, problem solving, and anticipating consequences. But intelligence doesn't automatically make decisions easier. Sometimes seeing more possibilities actually makes choosing one harder. The smartest response is not endless analysis. It's knowing when you have enough information to stop. Which brings us to a habit that seems much quieter. Someone enters the room. Most people notice the person. You notice they change their glasses. They're speaking slightly faster than normal. They keep checking the door, and they haven't touched the drink in front of them. Nobody told you anything was wrong, but something feels different. Some people naturally pay more attention to small changes, inconsistencies, and patterns. This can appear socially, visually, or intellectually. Maybe you immediately notice an error in a diagram, a contradiction in someone's story, a tiny change in someone's behavior, or a pattern connecting two things that initially seemed unrelated. Intelligence often involves more than simply knowing information. It also involves detecting relationships between information. The interesting part is that this habit can become annoying because once your brain notices inconsistencies, it may refuse to ignore them, which is probably why habit number 5 gets some intelligent people into trouble. Someone says, "That's just how it's done." And your brain immediately asks, "Why? Why do we do it this way? Who decided this? Does this rule still make sense? What would happen if we did the opposite?" This habit can make someone look difficult, especially in environments where questioning is interpreted as disrespect. But curiosity often begins with refusing to treat an assumption as a fact. Many problems survive simply because nobody examines them anymore. A questioning mind separates the rule from the reason behind the rule. Sometimes the rule makes perfect sense, and after examining it, an intelligent person accepts it. But sometimes the answer is basically, "We've always done it like this." And that's when curiosity becomes useful. High intelligence isn't about automatically disagreeing with everyone. That's just contrarianism. The stronger habit is being willing to ask questions and equally willing to change your mind when the evidence is better. But all of that questioning needs somewhere to happen. And surprisingly, many people prefer doing it alone. You enjoy people. But after enough conversation, notifications, noise, and activity, you want one thing: silence. Not because you hate everyone. You simply want your brain back. For some people, solitude creates the mental space needed to process everything they've absorbed. Think about how much information reaches you during an ordinary day. Conversations, problems, decisions, videos, messages, other people's emotions, your own emotions. When stimulation finally stops, the brain gets room to connect ideas that were competing for attention earlier. This is why ideas often appear while walking alone, taking a shower, or lying in bed. You're no longer forcing the brain to react to new information every second. It can wander, combine ideas, replay events, imagine possibilities. Of course, enjoying solitude does not prove intelligence. Introversion and intelligence are not the same thing. But someone with a highly active inner world may genuinely need periods without external stimulation. And during those periods, something else often happens. They daydream a lot. This one sounds terrible. You're supposed to be listening. Instead, your brain is designing a business that doesn't exist, replaying a conversation from yesterday, imagining how cities might work 50 years from now, or wondering what your dog thinks you do when you leave the house. Then someone asks, "Were you listening?" And the answer is technically no. Mind wandering can obviously become a problem. You need attention to learn, work, drive, and finish things. But a wandering mind isn't always an empty mind. Sometimes it is moving away from the immediate environment because it is generating its own material, ideas, scenarios, connections, memories, future possibilities. This kind of mental wandering can be closely connected to creativity because creativity often requires combining things that were not previously connected. Your brain starts with one thought. That thought triggers another, then another, and suddenly you've reached an idea that would never have appeared if your thinking stayed on one rigid track. But there is an important distinction. Productive mental wandering eventually returns with something useful. Constant distraction simply prevents you from doing anything. Intelligence isn't the inability to focus. It's having a flexible mind and learning when to let it wander and when to bring it back. And that is really the pattern behind all 7 habits. Talking to yourself, craving deeper conversations, overthinking possibilities, noticing small details, questioning assumptions, seeking solitude, and letting your mind wander. None of these habits prove that someone has a high IQ, and someone can be extremely intelligent without doing any of them, but they can reveal mental tendencies that often matter for intelligent thinking: curiosity, pattern recognition, cognitive flexibility, reflection, and the desire to understand things below the surface. So maybe the strangest thing about intelligence is that it doesn't always look intelligent from the outside. Sometimes it looks like someone staring out a window, talking to themselves, ignoring small talk, or spending 20 minutes researching a decision that should have taken two. What looks strange from the outside may simply be a brain processing more than you can see.